G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. Going to be going over my tips for round 7 of the 2025 AFL season. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you do go into enjoy today's video. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so let's first off see how I went from round 6, and it was a pretty decent week of tipping in the end, a 6 out of 9. Definitely will take that. There were a lot of horrific scores this round given the amount of upsets, but we did get the tips correct of Collingwood over the Lions. Just felt really good form. Team defence is looking strong, and geez, they were dominant, winning in the end by 52 points. Carlton over North Melbourne. North's defensive worries continue. The Dons snuck a win over the Eagles. And then after backing Melbourne consistently over the Swans, over the D's, I tipped Fremantle against them. And then they finally decide to pull out a really good quality win. But they were great. Moved the footy really well against Freo. Shell-shocked them, I guess you can say. This was a very low-scoring affair. Got the Giants' tip wrong. Crows' defence really stood up. The Suns upset Tigers. Played a good brand of footy against them. Port Adelaide backed them in over my Swannies. The Dogs over the Saints. And that Cats a really good, close and tight game. This was a small win over the Hawks. Let's now take a quick look at my 𝐼𝐴 tipping competition leaderboard update. As expected, nobody got themselves a full 9 out of 9. Given the matchups and results that did occur, it was basically near impossible. But as for who is leading my comp, it still is 𝐼𝐴 with a total score of 58. Let's now begin with our tips for round 7. We start on the Thursday night. The D's taking on the Tigers at the MCG. Melbourne were able to get the upset over the Dockers. They just really showed great dare with how they moved the footy. Really quick and slick hand passes. They just caught Fremantle out defensively numerous amount of times. And the midfield got back to work. 𝗍𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻, superb job tagging Sarong. Pickett also starting the centre bounces, and what he was able to do forward of centre was game-changing, kicked 5 goals. They got bang out of the buck with their forwards too. They dropped Fritsch and Van Rooyen. Then Petty was able to swing forward and had a big cameo. So I think this was definitely due for Melbourne, a really strong performance. So now can they back it up taking on the Tigers? They have a pretty good record over Richmond, but the Tigers, they're just a team you want to be careful tipping against, like we did mostly, all of us last week against the Suns. What really impressed me about the win is not only some youngsters, but just their senior core of players. 𝐓𝐿STON had his best game in a while. 𝗚𝐼𝐿𝐴 had a massive second half around the ground. Trento and Hopper as well, huge in the midfield, out battling a really good quality Suns midfield. Still a very young team, and you should with the Tigers in general, they are going to be up and down a little bit. Can they sustain a 4-quarter effort of just high intensity and pressure? I think I might play it safe here with tipping the Demons. I really was impressed by their performance, and their midfield got back to work, and was really impressed with how they moved the ball by hand. And the Tigers have been a fairly easy side to score against, especially as games do wear on. So back in the D's here, they've got a fairly decent record over the Tigers, I do think, but this one a close one. And then I think the D's will run away with it and win it by 13. And then we got on the Friday afternoon, the Anzac Day game between the Pies and the Dons. Collingwood, probably the most informed team in the competition. Since opening round, they've won 5 games in a row. As for the Dons, they have respectively chipped away and won 3 on the trot, but granted, they have been against fairly weak opposition. And the big news, obviously, coming out of the camp of Essendon is Sam Draper, unfortunately, is going to be done with the year with a long-term injury. So you add Nick Bryan to the list. Who they're going to play as the ruck? You'd think old man Todd Goldstein, or will they persist with a youngster like 𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐵 No matter who they pick, it's a massive out for their structure. Draper was on the verge of a breakout year, and Bryan was chopping out well. They got to work in the clearance game, the Dons. That was one of the key facets of them picking up the win in the West. As for the Pies, as we said before, one of the most informed teams in the competition, and it was evident against the Lions. Just that team defense again, really impressed. They didn't allow the Lions to move the ball freely. They just forced them long down the line, win the ball at ground level, and then just lock it back in their forward half and just generate repeated entries. Looking like a really cohesive unit at the moment, the Pies, and their age and experience is showing. They'll get Dan Houston back as well from suspension. It's an Anzac Day game, and as I always say with these sort of games, no matter who is in good form or not, these are always just close games of footy, but I think I still got to be backing in the Pies here, and especially if this game's going to be close, you just have more trust in them. So I'll go the Pies here in a fairly close game of football. Essendon, I reckon, will really bring it up to them. We'll go the Pies by 7. And then for the other Friday night game, we've got the Dockers taking on the Crows at Optus Stadium. Really tough one to tip here. 53% are saying Fremantle, 47% for the Crows. Obviously, Fremantle a bit more of the favourite given it is at their home ground. No doubt they'll be wanting a bounce back after a really disappointing display against the Demons last Saturday. Just looked soft, was unlike them with how easy the Demons were able to move the footy. They kicked, I think, 12 goals up to half-time. A pretty uncharacteristic performance, and they just looked a bit timid when they were wanting to move the ball. They just didn't really run and gun like we've seen them so far this year, the Dockers, with how they've been able to move the ball fairly quick and direct. Matchups at either end is going to be interesting. Josh Tracy feels like he's marking absolutely everything, and then you got the big three key forwards for the Crows down the other end. I feel for Adelaide, their confidence will definitely be boosted to the win over the Giants last week. Defensive masterclass, I guess you can say, only conceding 34 points to a high-scoring side of the Giants. Really impressive stuff. 𝐓𝐴𝐼𝐿 probably had his best game of his career. Just their pressure really locked the ball in their forward half. So can they head over to Perth and knock the Dockers? Definitely think they are a chance to. But with this game being in Perth, they'll probably lean towards the Dockers here. They'll know that they are not good enough, and a week's a long time in football as well, so I expect them to get back on the horse here. Both sides as well, not usually too good with close games, so that's also going to be interesting. Should it be a close one, who can really get on top? I'll go with the Dockers though. I feel like their midfield just probably is that little bit better, and in my eyes should be able to respond. So we'll go the Dockers here in a close game of football by 10 points. We now move on to the Saturday games. First one up at Marvel Stadium, 1:20 p.m. We do have the Saints taking on the Brisbane Lions. The Saints, disappointing last week, brought down back to earth with their big loss against the Bulldogs. We're absolutely smashed in the midfield, and that's a bit of a disappointing area for the Saints, given they've been a really good ground ball side to start off 2025. Jack Steele probably had one of his worst games in a while. It looks like his body's just really letting him down. It's the reason why they conceded almost 70 inside 50, so their defenders were just getting hammered all day long. And we have seen a slight sample size so far of the Saints this year. They have a poor loss, then the next week they bounce back and play a much better brand. We saw it with their loss to the Crows, and then the next week they come out and beat the Cats at Marvel. So pretty much I'm expecting them to play a lot better heading into this matchup against the Lions, who, yeah, we're probably due a loss. This is what I did say in last week's tipping video, which is why I did go the Pies in that tip. But yeah, the midfield was low their colours, I felt, and just unable to move the footy with many change of angles, and just basically played in the Pies' hands, going long to contest constantly. Can't afford to do that against the Saints because they do set up well. They're a well-drilled side, and they're also able to move the ball really well from the back half on their day, so the Lions got to watch out for that. Expect a response here for the Saints, and I feel like these matchups are usually quite close. It feels like the Saints are able to bring it up to Brisbane, but I just think the talent on paper with the Lions, they should be having the maturity as well to head into Marvel Stadium and find a way to knock off the Saints here. They'll also most likely get back in Kyle Lohmann too. Just feeling that the Lions can take them to school a bit around the midfield, given what the Saints did display it last week with their stoppage games. So Brisbane to win this one by 16 points. Next come up at 4:15 p.m. we have Port Adelaide taking on North Melbourne at the Adelaide Oval. Port now starting to get their season back on track with 2 wins in a row and pretty impressive results, it has to be said. Sydney up in Sydney, and of course the big game against the Hawks 2 weeks ago now, and facing a side low morale, North Melbourne. Do you give him much of a chance here? It's hard to really see it. It's a bit of a death matchup, I like to say. Port Adelaide and Adelaide, always a tough and tricky fixture. Port's pressure has been good the last 2 weeks, starting now to really ramp that area of their game up, and seeing now, it's looking like they're now starting to move the ball with a bit of confidence. The cohesion was out of whack a little bit in a few of their losses. I just think Zach Butters is a big in to that side. With Butters in and fully fit, they look like a 4-goal better side. He was best on ground against the Swans, just carved up with just his cleanliness in traffic. So yeah, I feel like their delivery's been a lot better inside 50. They've been taking the marks as well. They dominated the Swans in that area. Look, North, any chance here? It's hard to see it. They just need a full 4-quarter effort response. The midfield got blown out of the water against the Blues, and defensively looking like a massive concern. So I wouldn't be surprised here if the pair are able to kick a lot of points. But a week's long time in football, so who knows? North could maybe be leading this quarter time or make it even close. So I'd expect a bit of a response here for the Kangas, but I just do not have the trust in them at all for them to tip them here. I think Port should be able to cover them here and win this one well by 38 points. For Saturday night, we have an interesting game here, a bit of an underrated rivalry. The Giants taking on the Dogs at Manuka Oval. Now, it has been stated for the past few years, GWS don't usually play their best at Manuka Oval. Some teams have been able to pip them in the past, and I feel like the Dogs have been able to do that. Speaking of it, they've won 3 of their last 4 outings against the Giants. And as for the Doggies, they're coming off an impressive win, whilst for the Giants, just a loss, I guess. Given the team they are, you can probably just say it right off. You know, teams have some bad losses here and there. The conditions didn't really suit them, and they were probably mostly missing Jesse Hogan in that sort of a game. They just had a lot of repeat entries throughout the third term against the Crows, but just couldn't buy a mark, so Hogan's absence was pretty evident there. Regarding Hogan, he is a test for this week's game, so will be a massive in should he play. But as said, the Dogs win, very impressive. 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴 just back in there, no rust whatsoever, dominated the Saints with just his beautiful kicks inside 50 and his marking prowess as well. The Dogs' bounce off halfback was what really caught my eye with their win over the Saints, and are they able to replicate that sort of game against the Giants? Might be a bit difficult though, because GWS, one of the better sides in the comp for defending ball movement. The Giants' ability to pressure the opposition, always one of their strong suits too, so they really need to bring that against a pretty good looking midfield outfit of the Dogs with 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐴 back in there. So expecting the Giants to display a polar opposite of their game last week against the Crows in pretty dour conditions. Should put on a lot more points here. Expecting a bit of a shootout with this one, I reckon. Feeling a bit of an upset here with the Dogs. You got to go with a roughie sometimes. Only 12% tipped, and I just think off the back of that Saints win, they are going to be playing with a bit of confidence, I do feel. So going to go to the Dogs in this one. I think their midfield can do the job over the Giants and grind their way to a close win here, and the Dogs will get the chocolates by 6 points. For the Sunday games now, first one up at 1:10 p.m, we've got the Suns taking on the Swans at People's First Stadium. Both teams off the back of very disappointing losses. As for Gold Coast, it's one of those same old sort of Gold Coast performances. You look at the numbers they've put up so far this year, you expect them to beat the Tigers well, but just went into their shells a wee bit. Their midfield got torched a wee bit by the likes of Taranto and Hopper, so needing a response here against Sydney for a side on very low morale. Just their cohesion's looking like a total whack. Use inside 50, it's just very un-Swans like. They're one of the usually better and more cohesive sides in the competition with being able to move it by foot, but we're not been seen at all this year, really lacking a cutting edge. Even though I say that, the Swans numbers still in fairly good areas. They're roughly around top 8 for the turnover game with the defending and also attacking, and they were able to smack Port Adelaide around the footy, about plus 40 contested, plus 35 odd in the ground ball game. So if they can win that area as well and get repeat entries, it's just the question, can they be more efficient with their use? I just expect a bit of a Sydney bounce back here, I'm not going to lie, but Gold Coast at home, it's a pretty tough test, and also they'll be wanting to bounce back after a disappointing outing, and their numbers, as I say again, in really good favour. Their pressure and their ability to force front half intercepts as well has been one of their strong suits this year, and that is a bit of an issue for Sydney. When they are pressured in the back half, they can cough up and concede and leak points. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Suns here. I just think, the numbers are stacking up a wee bit better. Game that really goes either way, but I think the Suns will run away with it and put the hammer on the Swans and win it by 15. Next game up at 3:20 p.m, we've got a really good looking game here. The Blues taking on the Counts at the MCG. Just massive questions on the Blues. Are they now back? They've beaten arguably the two weakest sides in the competition. Midfield's in really good form too. Adam Cerra, but also especially George Hewett. I'd say he's probably a top 5 mid in the competition at the moment. He has been smashing it, moving really well, and that's been his issue the past few years with his back problems. If the Blues are any chance here, they just have to get the game on their terms. Dominance off stoppage. The Cats well beaten by the Hawks throughout periods of that game on Easter Monday. The Hawks were able to beat Geelong convincingly in the clearance game. So if Carlton can gain control of that and get a lot of repeat entries, and their front half pressure really impressive against North too, can they be that dangerous side at ground level in the forward 50? If they can replicate that, dominate off the clearance game, I think they can win this game of footy. But then on the other side of the coin, the Cats are just that really well-drilled side. Then their ball movement just is some of the best in the competition. What helps with that too is Bailey Smith and Max Holmes. They run all day and just so handy in transition. So deep down, I think the Blues are a chance here, but I just think the Cats can really brain them with how they are able to move the footy. Catch them out the back with some nice quality goals. So I think this one will be a contest, but the Cats to run away with it and win this one by 14. And for the final game of the round, we've got the Hawks taking on the West Coast Eagles at Marvel Stadium, 4:40 p.m. The Eagles, a much better effort against the Dons, and somewhat unlucky to lose that game. I'm pretty sure they were leading for the majority of the night. A much better response from their midfield. Harley Reid was thrown back into the centre bounces. Elijah Hewett had a breakout game though. Massive second half he had. Flynn back on the side as well. Looked a lot more competent than Bailey Williams. His hit-out work was much better, but what I really liked about him was the stuff he was doing at ground level. He was also helping out, sitting in the hole, taking in intercept marks too. And they just seem to pull out those games sometimes, the Eagles. They look really damaging with moving the footy at Optus Stadium, but can they do it here at Marvel? Against Hawthorn, they'll have fire in their bellies with dropping that game. To be honest, a game they probably could have won. They pissed away a lot of opportunities. Their conversion really let them down in that game. They probably could have been leading by a few goals at half time. I think they still should have the capabilities of knocking off the Eagles here at home. Can't really trust the Eagles here, especially away from home for a 4-quarter effort. We've seen some good patches with the Eagles this year, but there is just a massive gulf between their good and worst. So I think the Hawks should be able to do a number on the Eagles here. Fairly easy side to move the ball against too. So Hawthorn to win this one well. Go the Hawks by 35. So overall, there are my tips for round 7 of the 2025 AFL season. Let me know your tips down below in the comments section. Probably one of the more difficult rounds we're having for footy tips this week. A lot of 50-50 games. Could be a few upsets on the card. So let me know down below. Love to hear your people's opinions. And that's it from me, everybody. Take care, and until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.